By 1945, German airfields were being pulverized. The illegal solution was to build a fighter that didn't need an airfield at all. Enter the Bachem B349 Natter, or Adder. This act explores the construction of desperation. Because metal was scarce, the Natter was built almost entirely of wood, held together by screws and toxic glue. We detailed the launch mechanism, a vertical wooden tower where the plane was bolted to a rail. It used 4 massive solid-fuel boosters to get off the ground, subjecting the pilot to a bone-crushing 3G of force instantly. This wasn't flight, it was controlled explosion.
The Natter, Adder, was never intended to be an aircraft in the traditional sense. It was a guided missile that happened to have a human being trapped inside it. This segment explores the illegal physics of a flight path that was more akin to a modern space shuttle launch than a dogfight. Once the vertical boosters burned out and the Natter reached the altitude of the Allied bomber streams, the pilot finally took control of the stick. But he wasn't looking through a standard gun sight. He was looking through a simple metal ring at a massive, bristling battery of rockets hidden behind a plastic nose cone. This act details the one-shot strategy. The Natter carried no machine guns and no cannons. Its only teeth were 24 Fern 73mm rockets packed tightly into a hexagonal honeycomb in the nose. The forbidden science of the attack was simple. The pilot would dive toward a B-17 at 500 miles per hour, pull a single lever to jettison the nose cone, and fire all 24 rockets in one massive, unguided burst. It was designed to create a cloud of death that no bomber could fly through. We dive into the internal chaos of the cockpit during this moment, the blinding smoke from the rockets, the smell of cordite, and the terrifying realization that once those rockets were spent, the 349 was nothing more than a 2,000-pound wooden brick falling from the sky. The most harrowing part of this segment is the suicide split. This was the illegal escape mechanism designed to save the engine, which was the only part of the plane the Nazi high command actually valued. To survive, the pilot had to perform a series of mechanical maneuvers while plummeting toward Earth. First, he would pull a release lever that physically broke the plane in half. The nose section would drop away, exposing the pilot to a 400-mile-per-hour blast of freezing air. Simultaneously, a parachute would deploy from the tail to slow down the expensive rocket engine for reuse. We explore the forbidden safety protocols that were almost impossible to execute. The pilot was expected to literally fall out of the disintegrating wooden frame while his own parachute opened. If the timing was off by even half a second, the pilot would be struck by the tail fins or tangled in the engine's parachute lines. It was a design that prioritized the salvage of metal over the survival of the man. This act concludes with the psychological toll on the Natter pilots. Young men who were told they were the shield of the Reich, but who were actually just biological components in a disposable wooden weapon system.
By March 1945, the Natter project had reached a point of illegal desperation. Despite numerous successful unmanned launches, the aircraft had never been tested with a human at the controls. The SS, growing impatient as Allied tanks closed in on the factory, demanded a manned flight immediately. The man chosen for this historic
The comet
and
never
horrific
came close
mission
to altering
was
the course of the war.
22-year-old Lothar
But in many other
Sieber.
ways, Lippish's brilliant
This act
design did
explores
have a
the
tremendous
final
effect on the
60
course of
seconds
aviation
Sieber's
history
life,
and modern
a
life
minute
itself.
of footage that the military tried to burn because it proved the Bay 349 was a vertical coffin. We detail the forbidden launch at the Stettin am Kulten marked testing grounds. As Sieber was strapped into the wooden cockpit, he was essentially being bolted into a bomb. The countdown hit 0, and the 4 solid fuel boosters ignited with a deafening roar, punching the Natter into the sky with the force that would have shattered a weaker man's spine. But almost immediately, things went illegally wrong. At an altitude of just 1,500 feet, observers on the ground saw the cockpit canopy fly off and disappear into the mist. In that split second, the 400-mile-per-hour wind hit Sieber's face with the force of a sledgehammer, likely knocking him unconscious or breaking his neck instantly. The Natter didn't stop. It continued to climb into the clouds, flipping upside down and screaming toward the heavens. We explore the ghost flight phase. For nearly 30 seconds, the rocket burned out of control until it finally ran out of fuel. Then gravity took over. The 2,000-pound wooden dart plummeted back to Earth at near supersonic speeds. It didn't just crash, it vaporized. The impact was so violent that the Natter dug a 15-foot deep crater into the frozen ground. This segment covers the grim, illegal recovery. The search teams found only a left hand and a single foot still inside a flight boot. The rest of Lothar Sieber had ceased to exist. We conclude with the great cover-up. The Nazi High Command, refusing to admit their miracle weapon was a failure, classified the crash as top secret. They told the other pilots that the flight was a success and that Sieber had simply failed to bail out in time. They continued to build these wooden guillotines until the very day U.S. troops overran the launch site. As we look at the rusting launch towers left behind, we realize the Natter was the ultimate symbol of a regime in its death throes, a machine that ignored the laws of physics and the value of human life in a futile attempt to claw back a victory that was already lost.